Recording in progress.
Hello.
Hi, welcome everyone. We'll get started at 7.
Got it. I just want to test the voice.
Ah，
你就喜欢搞我，讨厌。
我是霸道总裁才。你干嘛？你干嘛？
Could have predicted this outcome. So much so that before we got married, his
Yeah, I think everyone's here. I think we'll get started on time. Okay, so can everyone see my slides?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
we can.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, to come to our AI Founders Forum. My name is Paul. I'm the founder at the Bear Founders Club. I founded Bear Founders Club in 2022 in Silicon Valley. A lot of people ask me why I go by Paul. So my German teacher gave me this name. My Chinese name is Pumin, which means bring light everywhere. So every morning while I wake up, I feel I'm on a mission to help out more people. And building community is the best way to help more people. I built a lot of communities in my whole life, and Bear Founders Club is one of the community. And every time people would thank me for helping them, and I feel great to be part of their life, and they're also part of my life. So when I came to Silicon Valley, I realized that the future of Silicon Valley is not determined by fun. So a lot of people come to Silicon Valley because they landed a job in Facebook, Apple, Netflix, or Google. But the future of Silicon Valley is determined by next fund, by the young innovators like us. So at that moment, I built the Bear Founder Club with several very young um, entrepreneurs in Web3. Actually, there is a joke here. Like last year, when SF Silicon Valley Bank collapsed, a lot of my friends don't care about that because most of the customers of Silicon Valley Bank are startups, not like us. So people don't care about that. Then I told my friend that the future of Silicon Valley is not determined by fund, but by the next fund. Then my friend say, you should say that the future of Silicon Valley is determined by you. Yeah, so fun is also my family name. Um, and that is the motivation why I built a Bear Founders Club. So right now, Bear Founder Club has over 2,000 members, and it consists of 1 to 20 startups, 80 plus VCs. And most startups have raised $1 to $5 million with some exceeding $6 million. And our mission is to foster a strong and collaborative community of AI and Web3 entrepreneurs and investors where we can all grow together. You can also find more details about Bear Founder Club on our website, bearfoundersclub.com. I want to build a community where we can grow together because most of the time we need to try 5 or 7 times until we make it. So I want to build a community where people can work together to decide if we need to pivot, if we need to persevere. We can also help the founders raise funding as needed. And I believe a strong community
But
goes
of course, what is
business.
great is
So
you have
we
these next
do
generation of drugs that keep coming.
we do live
and we
together
make
like through golf events,
improvements in
AI
the
dinner, our
potency in
team. All these events to help people build a sticky community. And here are all events we have organized in the past year. We organized AI golf event, we organized AI dinner, and a lot of VCs came to our event, like Miko from Gumi Crypto Capital, and a lot of founders present their project at our demo day. And many people raise funding through our events. Some people fund their co-founder at our event. Every time when they share the news with me, I feel uh, every time I organize the event, I feel exhausted. But every time I hear good news from them, and I realize what I'm doing is really meaningful, and I should keep working on that. So that's all the events we hosted past year. And also want to thank our sponsor, Andy Zhu. He's an investor, and he's also the 2015 Warren Buffett charity launch winner. He cares about young founders. So when he found I was building the Bear Fund Club, he's extremely interested, and he liked helping young founders. So we work together on building Bear Fund Club. We meet a lot of founders, and we also actively invest in AI and Web3 project. So if any of you are working on AI Web3 projects, feel free to reach out to me. Me and Andy are looking at the project every day, and we also like to give advice for the young founders. And this is our team. We have a social platform team. As you see, we have the bearfounderclub.com website. This is our team. Ray graduated from Berkeley last year, and he is also founding member of FlowGPT. FlowGPT raised tens of $millions, and she's in the PhD at Stanford right now. So the team is working on the website. You can scan QR code to join our website. So the goal is help you find a co-founder or next investment within 30 seconds. And this is a website we're building right now. First, we can help you connect with founder, investors, and individuals. We also build a think tank, so you can share your startup journey. We'll also invite KOL to website to share their know-how domain for example, text to video, text to 3D model. So there is a place that all these experts in different domains will share their insights here. And you can also build connections inside the platform, and you can also send message inside the platform. So this is the website the social media team has been building. We also have social media team which working on Substack. They are graduated from like Stanford or UPenn or Peking University, and they work extremely hard on our Substacks. So every Monday you will receive the newsletter like telling all events happening in the Bay Area. For example, this Monday they send out a newsletter saying that 19 events happening in the Bay Area, like 16 are in San Francisco and 3 are in the South Bay. And they will also generate high quality AI content. And so on Thursdays, so please subscribe to our Substack. You can scan QR code for our Substack, and you will receive all the emails weekly. And we're also on a mission to build 200 chapters globally. And Angelina is our chapter chair. She's a student at Stanford, and she also works at Meta. Right now, we have built 15 chapters around the world. We have Stanford, Berkeley, Harvard, Caltech, Washington, D.C., Canada, Hong Kong. And we're getting more and more chapter building every week. So if you want to be a chapter leader, feel free to reach out to me or reach out to Angelina, so we can work together to build the chapters locally around the world. And we also have event organizer, Jerry Lee. He's also host today, and he's a student at Stanford. He has been spending a lot of time helping us organizing this webinar. So without his help, this is not possible. And we have advisors here. As I explained, Andy Drew is a sponsor and also advisor for our Bear Founder Club. We also have First and Daniel. They will also be a speaker today. And we have all this advisors who has built companies previously and maybe right now is the CEO of public company. And they all provide a lot of advice for Bear Founder Club on how to make our Bear Founder better and how to serve all the founders in our club better. And we have been thinking about this every day.
哦，这样子吗？
And so if you want to join us, you can scan the linking QR code here and WeChat QR code and all my links. And on day one, I really hope people can do startups, life, and business together. We should not separate like startup, life, business. I want to build a community like we can do this together. We are friends in our daily life. So if you want to join us, here is our WhatsApp group, Telegram group, and WeChat group. So feel free to take a screenshot. We have over 500 members on WhatsApp, like over 400 members on Telegram, and over I think 3,000 members on WeChat. So feel free to join them. And our WhatsApp group is growing rapidly right now, and that is something we have been working really hard on the WhatsApp group. So feel free to join the WhatsApp group, and you will meet a lot of founders and VC there. Yeah, I think that's all for Bear Founder Club. Thanks again for coming. And Daniel will be our moderator. So I will hand it over to Daniel.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the intro. A bit long-winded. Now, on to our event. We have just about 50 minutes or 40 minutes of discussion, and hopefully some time will be left over for Q&A. And we have a very interesting and diverse group on our panel today. I would like to ask everyone, if you're listening in, please mute your microphones right now, unless you're a speaker and you're on the panel. because the background noise really distracts. And as I was saying, we have a really diverse group of panelists today. We got an entrepreneur who's ex-VC, and that is John. We've got a current VC right now, and that's Firth. And then we got Howie Zhu, who's currently a lecturer at Stanford and a former SVP of AI/ML of Palo Alto Networks. So we really have different perspectives. We will be talking a little bit about AI, but maybe not as much from an angle that you're used to. If you listened in to other podcasts about AI, we'll try to provoke some discussion here because we clearly have different points of view, the founder point of view, maybe a bit of academia point of view, and the VC point of view. And we'll try to kind of talk about some of the interesting implications of what AI, and not the technology as much as kind of what we're building with it, but what is it doing to the VC ecosystem and the founder ecosystem. So first, I would like to allow our esteemed panelists to say a few words about themselves. So maybe I'll just pass it on, and I'll do it in the order in which I see you guys. So from left to right, John, over to you first.
Hello, everyone. So hi, my name's John Whaley. I like founded now 3 companies, and also helped to run this like a founder, like a early stage AI accelerator called Inception Studio. And I also teach at Stanford. I most recently, last quarter, I taught a class about building applications using large language models. It filled up faster than I think any other class I've seen at Stanford. So it's definitely is like a really hot area. I've been here in the Bay Area since 2000, since I did my PhD at Stanford as well. And then before that, I was at MIT and did my undergrad and master's at MIT. But great to it was the class name. It was CS224G. You can go to cs224g.stanford.edu. You can see about the class. We had a lot of great guest lectures and a lot of very interesting content. It was a lot of fun to teach the revolution as it was happening. So that was my favorite classes to teach.
So literally the course was evolving as you were teaching it, probably.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, Howie, over to you. Maybe continue with the Stanford narrative.
Hello, everyone. John is actually one of those good students who finished the degree. I did not. So I was helping one of my professors, Menno Rosenblum, 20 some years ago, doing a company called VMware, which became a pretty big software company. So I spent first potentially half of my career right now in the infrastructure software, networking, cybersecurity, VMware, Cisco, startups, back and forth a few times. And in 2015, I decided to do something different, but I wasn't sure what I was. So I joined Greylock as a EIR in 2015. And then at that point, I kind of decided, okay, I wanted to spend the next 20 years in AI machine learning. So now, almost a decade passed. I think it's sufficient to say that we have made, as an industry, we have made a lot of progress. I've been witnessing and then, helping, getting the AI machine learning into the enterprise, in the last 10 years. I started a company. It was acquired by Zscaler. They just went IPO, and then I helped the company to grow from $150 million revenue to $2 billion revenue in about 4 years. More than a year ago, I left, joined Palo Alto Networks, I ran the AI machine learning there, but then I actually also left, and then I'm actually joining another place, which I cannot disclose, yet. Because it's a public company. So anyhow, so I've been doing AI machine learning, applying AI machine learning to solve enterprise products in the last, almost a decade. very much looking forward to the new problems, we are going to solve the next decade, right? The agent, the personal assistant, with all the large language model that can see and hear, it cannot smell yet, I think, who knows? So with all those capabilities, what are we going to do? We'll get into more of this topic, later, but, that's kind of my background.
Great. Thank you, Howie. Fascinating. And maybe now on to Firth, maybe if you just a few words about yourself. Is Firth with us? Because I thought I saw him just when we got into the session.
Yeah, hi, this is Firth.
Ah.
I spent the last 40 years investing in companies around the world. And most recently, the last 25 years in think tanks, addressing some of the most intractable problems in economics, social, environmental, and other areas as well. And now I'm creating a company as an entrepreneur using AI, stealth company, addressing some of these very intractable problems.
Right. Well, it seems like we're all in the good company. And just a few words about myself, your moderator. I'm a serial entrepreneur, been building companies pretty much out of college. Have went on the venture side as well, as both the manager of a small fund and a business angel. I'm also building an AI company that will help hopefully improve how VCs and entrepreneurs interact, and it's also powered by AI, of course. And so as I said, it's very interesting to hear what other people are doing, and we'll discuss some of that today. As part of my passion, I also teach, and I teach entrepreneurial mindset. It's a course. I did a few guest lectures at Stanford, but the course I teach somewhere else. So share the passion for teaching as well. So maybe jumping into kind of some of the things we can talk about today. Obviously, AI kind of wave of startups, there's been a huge amount of hype around it in the last 2 years. And the hype hasn't died down yet. We haven't hit kind of the row of disappointment on the Gartner curve. But I wonder, since we both have founders and VCs and people that have been on the venture side here, when you look across kind of, maybe the Bay Area landscape and maybe even outside, how do you usually tell between the founders that are just riding the wave? Obviously, for example, John, you mentioned you teach a course on how to build apps, and it's become so easy to build apps. I know even myself, there's things that used to take like years now take months. You just build things very quickly. But what's a real product then, and what's just a hyped up thing that they're trying to kind of get to the investor to get their next round and move to hopefully a better something. But we've seen a lot of that in the Valley, and I would love to hear your opinions. And how do you tell the difference these days?
You mean the difference between what and what?
The difference between basically something entrepreneur that's riding the wave of AI hype right now, with sometimes quickly hacked products, sometimes big promises, and people that are building real things that will really whether either disrupt or bring value to the market.
Meaning that some companies are just riding the wave, not sure there is a real impact, but then there are also companies building real products that's disrupting the industry. What is the question is how to tell the difference?
How do you tell the difference when you look at them?
John, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to hop in. So, I think that there's a set of, yes, we are totally in a bubble right now. This is like without a doubt. And like there is, you know, there's this whole Gartner hype cycle. We are kind of on there's a question, are we still on the uptake or are we kind of at that plateau? But like there will be a correction that'll happen. When it will happen, I don't know, like next year, year after, you know, it will happen. And then where all of these super high expectations are going to come crashing down, and then it's going to come back to reality, right? That being said, I think there's also some really, really exciting things that are happening, that like businesses that will be completely disrupted and industries that'll be completely disrupted by Gen AI. I think this is different than some of the other hype waves that we've seen in the past that never came to fruition. This one is like the world is definitely changed. I mean, if I get like, and people's eyes opened really happened with ChatGPT, and like when that came out, and then it just like opened people's eyes to like what the possibilities here. I think like the biggest difference is that there are a lot of like companies that are like hammers searching for nails, where it's just like, oh, I have this magic hammer that's called GPT-4 or now GPT-4o, like just came out yesterday, and like look at all these amazing nails that you can go hammer on, right? These like those are typically not the companies that are going to be sustainable over the long term. The ones that'll be sustainable, like the fundamentals have not changed, right? Like there's a lot of fundamental questions, like who is your customer? What is the burning need problem that you're solving for them? How is this 10 times, not like 10% better, but 10 times better than anything else that they that they have or can reasonably get by, you know, just opening up a ChatGPT window, right? And it has to be like, and you have to be able to answer these questions. You know, how are we going to reach those customers? Like, what's the message that's going to actually, you know, resonate with them, and you know, what's the product and all this? Like, none of those things change. And so I think sometimes like when you're in this kind of hype bubble, like people lose sight of that. They're like, look at the amazing capabilities, and then they lose sight of like, you have like to build a sustainable business, you need to be solving a real problem, right? And not a kind of fake made up problem, or one that is, you know, that people care about, but don't care about enough. You know, like there's tons of these cases that I see. I also see like there's a overabundance in certain areas because the people who are very familiar with you know, machine learning and like in LLMs and things like that, they're often working in, I mean, they work on the problems that they're most familiar with. So there are tons and tons of like, you know, better tools for LLMs and like these sorts of things, which like it absolutely is like there's a market there. There's not, but it's a bit oversaturated because that's where a lot of the emphasis is, because like people work on problems that they're just familiar with, right? And like whereas like there'll be big opportunities in like in marketing and in legal and in like construction and a bunch of other industries that maybe not that many people are thinking that much about, but like it's sort of a little bit less competitive. But but as long as you're solving a real opportunity there, and like you're solving a real problem in a way that is like, you know, substantially better than, you know, the status quo or anything else, then I think that there's a good chance that you will be successful, you know, at least compared
So
to
let me
like ones that are
throw
just kind of
a hot
riding the
potato
hype.
in the midst here. Like you know, you said hammer looking for nails, right? So there's a huge hammer by the name of Perplexity. At least that's the way it seemed to me when I first tried it. And that hammer, I
Yeah.
don't know how much it's worth now, but it's some value, like very sizable valuation at this point. And you know, when I looked at it and I used it, I was like, well, this is not that different from ChatGPT, or even like in some cases, certain things could be comparable to Google, some are not. But so like just opening up to the panel, is a Perplexity like that hammer that we're talking about, or is it really like the product that's just doing something significantly different or disrupting? And maybe, you know, I would love to hear maybe from Howie and Perth on things like that.
Yeah, look, you know, whether Perplexity is you know, too big a hammer, I think it's yet to be seen. I don't know it's clear yet. You know, we may argue the valuation is a bubble valuation. And then from that point of view, I totally agree with John in the sense that we are already in the bubble. However, I would also say it's a good bubble. When I say it's a good bubble, in the sense that every time you have a transforming technology, you have a transformation going on. you always need some, irrational behavior, irrational funding, irrational something to push things over the hump, right? So in some ways, the fact that there's so much funding, so much energy, so many great talents working on this, a lot of solutions surrounding the GPT, surrounding ChatGPT like technology. I think it's a good bubble to have. At the same time, it is a bubble because we are seeing, multi-billion-dollar valuation for companies with close to no revenue, close to no customers yet, right? Now, is that going to be, is that such a bad thing? I mean, it's case by case. So that's one. The thing that, I very much agree with John, right? Looking at, you need to solve a real problem. One of the things, one comment I would add to what John said is, oftentimes, I wouldn't say that's necessary true, right? But oftentimes, you want to solve a problem you actually are very familiar with, and ideally a problem you had, a pinpoint you had in the past, whether because, in your life or in your work, right? In the case of Facebook, we all know that Mark Zuckerberg, created a Facebook to solve his personal pain point, right? And then there are companies that was created like a Docker and a few other companies that because the founder feel like, hey, it's, certain things, HashiCorp or those kind of companies, those are infrastructure software companies, they were created because the founders felt like, it's so much, it takes too many tedious steps to finish one thing. I might as well create a tool for that to solve my own problem, right? So I think one of the things I would recommend people is not just a hammer looking at looking for the nail, but also looking at the problems you have, in your own day-to-day, or again, the way, how you live, how you work, right? I think if you have a observing, if you're kind of observing, you will see a lot of the pinpoint. And I would bet, we already saw the last generation of the big companies like a fan, right? Facebook, Google of the world. I'm pretty sure 15 years from now, when we look back, right, that the new generation of the big companies, a bunch of them, a good part of those, magnificent 5 or 7 at that time, people will look back, it's the same thing, right? This John or Joe, right, created this company to solve his or her own problem. I'm more than sure about that. History repeats, again and again. So those are the two things I would say. One is echoing what John is saying about, bubble. I'm glad he called it out explicitly because, I think we, whether entrepreneurs or people in, working for, media or big company, we have to realize that there are a lot of irrational things going on, right? The amount of the capital expense, capital expend, how many GPU cards that people bought, right? When are they going to see the return out of those 100 billion, 200 billion out of it? It will be a long time, maybe, never, at least for this cohort. But I truly believe that this is a very good bubble. We almost living the best time, and then it's a privilege to be in this time. So that's one way to look at it. The other thing is to extend what John said about the looking for a problem. Solving a real problem. I would encourage people to solve a problem that you are facing, day to day yourself. That's a good starting point, at least.
So maybe moving on over to Firth, do you first of all, what is your take on this? But also, do you feel like this bubble that has emerged now has created different expectations from the standpoint of VCs or founders? That has put more pressure on us and our founders, I could say us, as founders to do things faster, cheaper, better, different. Like, put AI into something that maybe doesn't yet need AI, or we don't know how to put AI into it. So the proverbial hammer comes back, and you're like, okay, well, it has AI in it.
Yeah, well, I'm entering this panel as an entrepreneur, not an investor.
So the entrepreneurial perspective.
Yeah, my perspective is you know, in a bubble, don't be a copycat.
Mm.
You know, we lived through the .com era, and we watched how the copycats fell very quickly. But yes, solve real problems, your problems, other people's problems, problems you can delineate and set parameters for, and either enable core technologies that incumbents could not do on their own, or create breakthrough technology that has a moat and is not easily copied. Those are the things you should be thinking about, because in a bubble, things get washed out very quickly if they don't have traction.
So it seems like then we're back to traction, as just yeah, it's always back to traction. But at the same time, there is that bubble. And for example, I've recently had a conversation with one of the top innovation people in a very big consulting firm, and he said we actually have enough kind of runway of this AI expansion, both in terms of like application and in terms of capital financing that application. And he said it in the next 5 years it could be like 100x compared to what it is now. That was his take, and so do we think there is that capacity, or we think we're actually, like John's saying, we're close to kind of that peak point, and now it's like downhill, the cart rolls downhill race?
Well, one of the issues that we face is the public markets.
Mm.
And if someone, an incumbent, is running high and attracting capital and building many pillars, if any of them fall, that will impact the private market.
Mm. And by incumbent, do you mean someone like OpenAI?
Yes.
How many incumbents are there that could put us at this risk? Is there really a lot? Because it seems like there's only just a few.
Anyone post-IPO.
Anyone post-IPO. Interesting.
Yeah, and then I mean, back to your earlier point of kind of I think it is really important to have some type of personal connection to the problem that you're trying to solve. Because you want to have, because like doing the startup is hard. I mean, even during the bubble time and everything, I mean, you're looking at, it's probably 10 years until you kind of really become that breakout success. Whether it's IPO or whatever, like it's like that's like a decade, right? And so we can argue about like what part of that curve is, but like sometime within the next 10 years, like there will be like this big downturn, and you're gonna have to like fight your way through that. And like there's a lot of things that are hard about starting companies. It'd be like, oh, you're running out of money, or like you lose a big customer, or you get sued, or like just all like lots of hard things that happen, right? And so you have to have the resilience about like, I care enough about solving this problem that is beyond just like, well, I'm starting a company to get rich because like, there's a gold rush happening that's called the AI gold rush. And it's like, I don't want to miss out. Like there's like, if that's your motivation, then it's like, you're not going to be able to stick it through, like through, all the hard things it takes to build a company. And so, and like, they talk about like, there's this like notion of this like superhero origin story. So you think about, I mean, every superhero, like they have, their canon, like what, canon moment basically that happens, that it's like, what is it that made them into who they became, right? And you think about Batman, and how did Batman become Batman, right? Well, when he was a child, he saw his parents, gunned down, in the shadows and in the streets of Gotham City. So like, what did he grow up to be? He grew up to be a crime fighter in the shadows in the streets of Gotham City, right? And so there's a backstory there, which is like it points to, it's like there's nothing else in the world that Batman should have been doing other than being Batman, at that moment in time. And so some of this is mythology, but it is important. I mean, it's important to have some type of connection to the problem that you're solving, that like, so you actually do really care about it. So when the going gets tough and like things get hard, you need to like have, be willing to kind of keep powering through. I think it's like in just about every case, like when you hear about a successful company, every single founder, they have some story about how they should have given up. Like
Yeah.
everything pointed to like they should have given up. Nothing was working or whatever, and then they find some kind of adjacent thing to the problem they were solving, and suddenly like the thing takes off, right? That's always that's you start up, I'm building a gaming company and you end up building Slack, right? Like that's the story of most successful startups. And so you have, like just having that, some of that perseverance there. And some of it is just like, it's some of it is personality, honestly. It's like there's a certain type of personality that like will keep like banging your head against the wall until you like break through. Some of it is like you just have like some type of personal connection to the problem that you just want to see it solved, like you won't give up no matter what happens. And then that ends up being separating this. Like, I mean, I mentioned I taught this class at Stanford. There's a bunch of like people who like they were proposing ideas, like these are just students like at Stanford proposing ideas that these are like, I know companies that have raised like 50 to 100 million dollars, like trying to do like it's like exactly the same idea, right? And so if you look at this, it's like, the idea is like, well, look, a student at Stanford could come up with it, or like, some other founder could come up with it. And like the ideas are a dime a dozen. What actually matters is execution. And, and because like I can guarantee you whatever idea you have around AI, like if you say the words, hey, let's apply, Gen AI to insert industry here, any industry, anywhere. Like I can guarantee you there's probably 1,000 other founders out there who come up with exactly the same idea
So
you do. And so it's like, well, then if you give in, that's what really matters.
Okay, so this is interesting. Now we have AI to help us build faster and arguably better. Does this actually create an unfair advantage for the founders that have explored AI faster here in the Bay Area and they have like actually latched onto it and they're building with it or using it in some way inside their company? Or it actually democratizes the market and actually allows all these other startups that didn't have resources, mainly money resources that the Bay Area has, unlike any other place in the world in terms of just the sheer amount. And I would love to hear Howie and first take on that one. Yeah, what's your vision?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. My answer, my take on that one, I think there is some democratization of the technology angle. So from that point of view, I think where you are leading to is, does that mean, Silicon Valley entrepreneurs are gonna have less advantages, right? I may agree with the conclusion to a small degree, but not for the reason you mentioned. Here's why. So first of all, I said a small degree, right? To a large degree, I don't agree because I feel like, the Silicon Valley still has a tremendous amount of the advantage. The advantage is the ecosystem, the people around you, right? People, are sort of contagiously irrational sometimes, but risk taking, right? So you don't run into people left and the right, outside of Silicon Valley wanting to do a startup, wanting to take risk. But here, you have that atmosphere. You can run into investors, you can run into fellow entrepreneurs or potentially your future co-founders. That ecosystem is, just enormous. I think if you feel like, hey, we may lose that advantage, that's because you haven't lived, outside of Silicon Valley for too long. Every time I went to outside of Silicon Valley, Seattle or other places, the people, always say, yeah, we also have some network, we also have the ecosystem, but compared to Silicon Valley, it's nowhere close, right? So I think we are in this spot, in the envious spot. I don't think that disappear anytime soon. Even though there was a lot of talk about some people, left Bay Area, went to, I don't know, Texas or Florida. By and large, that's not true, so that's number one. I may agree with you to a small degree, but not for the reason you mentioned, but for a different reason. If you think about AI, we already said, right, it's a hammer, right? Or oftentimes it's a hammer. And if you wanted to solve a real problem, who has the real problem, right? Sure, within Silicon Valley, we have a lot of real problems, but there are far more real world problem outside of Silicon Valley, right? For instance, finance industry, financial industry, right? Manufacturing industry, there are a lot of industries. They don't really have much or as much or nearly as much presence in Silicon Valley. So sometimes it's harder for people in Silicon Valley to understand and appreciate it. So I actually was in New York last week, I interviewed about, 2 or 3, publicly, I interviewed 2, entrepreneurs at the New York Stock Exchange. It's actually on my, page, Biting to Future YouTube channel. You can watch it yourself. If you I actually think, when, I had for both entrepreneurs, I had probably 35-minute deep conversations. And then if you really watch it carefully, you would see that, hey, the kind of the problem they are solving is not I wouldn't say Silicon Valley people do not understand, do not have access, but they have much deeper understanding. I mean, think about it. The 2 of them, the 2 entrepreneurs, they were hedge fund managers. They founded a hedge fund, right? They understand a hedge fund more than, software engineers for sure, right? And now they are doing, they turn into an AI entrepreneur, the AI company founders. They are solving the problem. They know the pinpoint left and right, right? And then I think Silicon Valley engineers have less of those deep knowledge in some specific verticals. Now, it's not to say it cannot be solved, because maybe you have a co-founder, maybe you actually also came from that industry, right? So I have a friend that he, the person working in the big company, and then he told me he's starting a company in the financial sort of thing. I said, where's your background? He said, believe it or not, before I come to this big company, right, one of the Google, Facebook-ish kind of companies, I was actually, doing, I got a financial degree, actually was doing financial stuff. So I thought, okay, that's interesting. So the point I'm trying to make is, if people with a very deep domain knowledge, vertical knowledge, now with this AI democratization, they may be able to run even faster and then, better than the Silicon Valley engineers, for that reason. So, but I think everything is a degree, right? I'm not saying that is the only thing I see. It's not 0 and 1. I see a degree of that, at least.
So, you mentioned something that there's these industries, right? And I deal with a lot of these big corporates. We actually, part of the business that we do has to do with helping corporates, become more innovative. And what we find is sometimes this, right now we find huge FOMO, because obviously everyone, the AI boogeyman's out of the closet, and it scares everyone because they understand it. They understand the consequences of it, and it scares them. But the second part is, if you actually start asking them, okay, so you're scared, what are you doing? Has anyone in this room, please raise a hand, who has used ChatGPT? This is recent, by the way. There's 8 top managers in the room. 1 hand goes up. Now, this is a year and a half after the ChatGPT, and of course, a bunch of other things came out now, even earlier or later. So the question is, do we think that despite all this amazing excitement, we got, we're going to have an issue with just, us as humans, mentally not being able to plug in fast enough, whether we're entrepreneurs or corporate top managers, into the speed of change is just becoming too much. Do we think we hit that point where the speed of change is too much? Like, people just can't, like,
actually, the question is very valid, so I've been doing enterprise software for, more than 25 years, right? And I saw that sort of the cycle happen again and again. And then I see this is happening with AI for sure. A lot of people say, well, where's the where's the GPT-5, GPT-6? We're waiting for the better and the better model. My observation is the bottleneck for us to really apply AI, generative AI, and then to solve real problem, and then really make things happen, and then change the way we live, change the way we work in a substantial way. I don't think the friction point or the only friction point is we don't have a GPT-5 or GPT-6, capability yet. Make no mistake about it. The better the model, the more capability it's going to help, right? I'm not questioning that. But I think that there's tremendous amount of the friction point, and that's because of the culture, because of the process, because of the DNA, because of the people issue, right? If you want to apply AI machine learning in the financial industry, in the manufacturing industry, in any enterprises, when you find out is, you are dealing with the organizations, you are dealing with all sorts of issues. That's not because, you have a GPT-4 versus a 5 versus 3. It's sort of a, that issue. So I think today, to make a blunt statement, I think the technology is evolving faster than the enterprise is able to digest. And then,
So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So I want to segue to now both Perth and John here, and maybe I would love to hear from you, Perth, because we haven't heard from you in a while. Do you think that, do you agree or disagree first? And second, if you agree, what do we need to change in terms of how we're educating ourselves as entrepreneurs or as, whatever managers, top managers, to actually kind of keep up with the crazy speed of change? Or is it hopeless? Like we're just done. AI is going to rule the world.
Well, I think a core point here that Howie touched on is that domain experts are going to drive the possibilities.
Mm.
So yes, they're going to have difficulty keeping up, but that's why they need partners in order to figure out how to solve those problems. They can't do it alone. And with respect to education, I think people need to learn better how to manage information.
Mm.
I spent a lot of time in think tanks
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of time in business. And I find people in business have a very difficult time managing information. And they're using all of these new tools because they don't know how to access the information that's sitting in their inbox.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't communicate what's being addressed, and you need to rely on ChatGPT in order to create some kind of socialization around some subject matters, you're going to miss a lot of the core points.
So it's the mindset change first, and then apply AI on top of that.
I think it's education about fundamental things like understanding information and conveying information, communications capacity. These things are missing in business in general, and certainly across Silicon.
Interesting.
Before the ChatGPT moment, we always, at least in my world, we always talk about data literacy of the company, of the executive, of the CEO. If the CEO has a very little data literacy, or the senior executive has less of that, it's very hard for that company to adopt AI machine learning. Again, that's even before, the ChatGPT moment. Now everyone's doing some projects, just because of some because of the FOMO, some because of whatever the pressure, right? But whatever, what Firth is talking about is still very relevant.
John, your take before we go over to questions.
Yeah. So I mean, I do believe that like the people who are like the people who are fluent in these new technologies are like have a huge advantage compared to those that are not, and that gap is only widening. I think this is why. I mean, to your earlier point, you said, "Hey, isn't this going to democratize it, make it anyone anywhere can solve?" Yes, theoretically, but the truth is, I mean, look, I'll give you a story. Like there was, I remember I went to one of these. A trade show somewhere. It was kind of in the middle of the US, and it was about, kind of call centers, things like that. And then there's a sign there that says like AI powered call center. And that was like and then a lady walked by and she looked at it and she like kind of turned her head sideways and she's like, "Who's Al?" Because she read it and she thought it was like Al powered. Who's this Al guy who's powering the call center? It's just like that's like kind of like what kind of disconnect there was. This was like a year or so ago. So this was like, but still, I mean, like I mean, talk about bubble, like talk about like Silicon Valley as a bubble. Like I mean, here you have people with AI wearables and like using ChatGPT every day and like those kind of things. Yes, I mean I mean, it has captured a lot of people's imagination, but like if you look at who is actually fluent in these tools and able to use them effectively, it's largely like people who are kind of here, kind of plugged in. Like it is a superpower. I mean, look at like this is like in the past, like you need to have an entire team to do things. Now you can actually like I saw a stat that software engineers who use like tools like GitHub Copilot and others are 5 times as productive as those who don't. Like 5x. I mean, this is like, and I've seen it myself. I've seen cases where there are people who like in the order of months, whereas it used to be that you would need an entire team and they'd be working on this for a year. It's like in a few months they have like a pretty well like refined working product. I think that's because they've fully embraced some of these tools. So like just be able to getting good at these tools, I think is super important. This is why it's like even for education and kids and stuff, there's some say, oh, don't let them use ChatGPT or don't let them use like Gen AI tools. It's like, no, I think it's the opposite direction. It's like you want them to be as fluent as possible in these tools because they do exist. And the people who are good at these things, whether it's like, hey, now I can create like pretty good artwork with Dolly if I know how to like write the right prompts and things like that. Like that's like these things are really powerful, right? And so it's very useful to know and be fluent in these things. And I think this is also why like this is instead of this leading to kind of like a spread out of this is actually leading to more of a concentration. I saw a stat that like so over 80% of all the funding, all the funding rounds that happen in AI companies are in companies that are in the Bay Area.
Yep.
Like and then the real question there is like, well, who are these other 20%? And like, where are they? And the truth is that many times what happens is that, yeah, in their early rounds, if they're doing a seed or something, they're somewhere else. There's a big pressure for them, like when they want to get serious and it's like they're going to come to the Bay Area for do their Series A or Series B. It's like if you're not doing that, you're not serious about it because like it's amazing like the ecosystem that's here. Like every single day, there's probably 5 to 8 events that are happening every single day around the Bay Area.
Yeah, around the AI. I know we've seen that. So
And-
moving on to just so we have a couple of questions. That one of the questions was, and I think that this is a pretty interesting one from just hearing quickly, maybe for like a minute each, personal perspectives. How did you decide what you're working on now? And maybe I'll take an opportunity to start here. I'll say for myself, there's 2 things I'm working on. One is our AI-powered business intelligence tool. It came from a personal pain as an entrepreneur and VC, how the information is managed in a space where you're like trying to communicate about your company, fundraise, or actually find the company. And it's very manual and it's very archaic and it's very cumbersome and very slow. So we basically personal pain of a bunch of people I know. So tackling in some ways kind of to what Howie was saying, personal pain. Second, educating people into entrepreneurial mindset. Speed of change is such, what we discussed before, that having hard skills might be, you don't know which hard skills to have because they might be wiped clean by AI. But having mind skills that actually allow you flexibility, grit, some of the things we talked about here, I think John, you talked about, and how we talked about too. That is what keeps you kind of afloat. So that's why I think more people need to learn that firsthand. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So maybe over to you and starting with Perth and then Howie and then John.
Yeah, as I said earlier, we spent the last 25 years on intractable problems, and we noticed that a few of them could be solved if we addressed the problem technically. So that's what we're doing now, looking at that technical opportunity.
And would you mind sharing which intractable problem specifically you're looking at? That's intriguing.
We've actually solved a couple, but I mean, the most intractable right now are related to climate change and biodiversity loss.
Yeah, that is super tough. Very big one too. Okay, Howie?
Two things. One is in general, there are a lot of long-tail issues or problem statements. I think people should look into it, which was not quite feasible, possible with the old technology or with the traditional software engineer or traditional machine learning, because it's too much work collecting too much data. It's not worth it, if you solve the long tail problem. But now it's possible to AI or whether automatic reasoning or whatnot to solve this aging technology to solve those problems. It's possible now. It's feasible now. That's in general. But I think the second part is actually, I do want to make a recommendation is that people, there's no one correct answer, right? You ask me about Perplexity. It's the timing. If they do a little bit early, if they do a little bit late, there's no opportunity, right? Like YouTube, if they started 2 years early, 2 years later, there's no YouTube. It's the same. As a matter of fact, OpenAI, internally, they actually wanted to do search, before, probably 2 years ago, whatnot. And then they actually looked into it. They decided, okay, this is not a problem worthwhile solving, and then for a lot of reasons. When Perplexity, sort of broke out, and then they were asking themselves, like, what went on? Like, we looked into it and we thought it's not interesting, but how can we be interesting? So don't be influenced too much by just the experts or other people. It's more important what you are passionate about, what you feel like this is something important, right? Because if it's solving your pinpoint, if it's something your domain, you have spent a lot of time in it, then you might be one of the best person who has the judgment. Then just go solve that problem. There's no expert, right? In this case. So that's my sort of two-sided
passion. Just okay, John.
Yeah, really quickly. We've been focused on recently, like the problem of kind of scam, like the downside of generative AI, like the problems of that makes it a lot easier to do scams and social engineering and those type of things. So the latest company is called Redcoat, and we help prevent against these type of scams, like not only things like the text messages you get, but also like voice and video as well. Like, I think that it's always a case with new technology that the early adopters are always like scams and porn, and like that's the same way for Gen AI. Lots of scammers are using this to try to scam people. So we're just trying to build defenses against that. That's what Redcoat does.
Also seems very timely.
Yeah, since both John and Firth, mentioned what they are passionate about. I think this is I talk about for half a minute about what I'm passionate about as well. But the thing that's important is it's a very personal, right? Because I've spent more than 25 years in enterprise software. I sort of ask myself, what's going to keep me more curious, more in the learning mode. I myself decided to actually look at something I've never done before, which is outside of enterprise software thing. And then that's not because it's a better decision or better. It's just that for me, I feel like I'm more curious. I wanted to learn things, totally out of my comfort zone. So that's something, I'm going to work on at least for the foreseeable future. Very excited about that.
Well, and it's a great place on the planet, one of maybe the greatest to continue learning. That's for sure. We're pretty much right on the dot at 8 p.m. here. So I would really like to thank all of you for this very dynamic conversation. Of course, an hour is not nearly enough to kind of really dig into it, but maybe like one closing remark from each one of you to the many young founders that are listening to us right now, and some VCs as well. Any words of wisdom or advice that you think are important to share? Anything.
I'll just say one thing. This is the best time to live.
I think this is a very exciting time, without a doubt, and to be in this space, when all these things are happening, and there's tons of opportunities. There's going to be at least $1 trillion company that's going to be started, outside of OpenAI. There's going to be at least $1 trillion company that's going to be started, this year and the next year and the next year or two, there's going to be multiple $100 billion companies that are started there. And it's just yeah, it's just if you have conviction idea and you're kind of willing to hustle, now is an amazing time to go and start a company. And so yeah, and feel free to reach out to me if you're interested in this area. Like I mentioned at inception, we kind of help founders at that -1 stage where they're trying to come up with like idea conviction and like meet co-founders and those sorts of things. So we're a nonprofit. We don't take any equity in the companies and everything. So yeah, it's just all upside for the founders. So feel free to reach out if you're interested and you feel like you want to start a company.
Yeah. And Firth, any words of wisdom from you before we adjourn, at least with the panel?
I think first message me like he has a meeting at 8.
Okay, got it. Okay, so well, then this part is over. I know that Paul has prepared some breakout rooms and there's going to be some moderators. So we'll let you guys enjoy and discuss what you have further learned. Hopefully this was useful. Once again, thank you, everyone. Great company, great
I think
conversation. I'll see you somewhere in the Bay Area.
Also, Daniel, I think before speakers leave, so let's take a group picture.
Yeah, let's do that. That's always fun.
2, 3, 2, 1, cheers. Okay. Oh, so anyone, do you want to turn your camera on so we can take a picture with all the people? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of people.
It's very surprising that
100 people in this.
Wow. Keep going, guys. Yeah.
Okay, good luck with everyone.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll have 1 more minute, guys. If you feel comfortable, turn on the camera and we'll take a group picture.
Yeah. Come on. We're gonna have one of the biggest group pictures.
Exactly.
I think I've ever taken 100 people group picture on Zoom.
Where is the breakout room?
Oh, we'll do it after the picture time. Okay.
I hope you have a big monitor.
Well, yeah, I think this is it. This is the limit, so you might as well take.
Yeah, I'll just take a picture. Now we have 2. Okay, it's challenging. Okay, I'll do it right now. Okay, guys, 3, 2, 1. Cheers. 3, 2, 1. Cheers. Okay, thank you so much for the insightful discussions, and I hope we'll meet in person. And next up, I think we will assign people to different breakout rooms. We have 8 volunteers, and we will break into 8 groups. Thank you so much to speakers. Thank you. Thanks again.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, Jerry, I think you can assign all the attendees to the breakout room right now.